Christian fundamentalist radio host Bryan Fischer is going to do some awesome mental gymnastics here on whether or not Jesus would support Trump's Muslim ban.
So, Jeff, you were saying on the break that you had a question or two about the whole immigration thing.
Yeah, I do. But you pretty much answered it in that column right there. That was pretty thorough. But I guess I have another one related. I'm starting noticing a lot of people on social media and in personal life that are asking the question, would Jesus be in favor of walls or immigration and things like that? And I started wondering about that. I mean, don't we hear stuff about the pearly gate, which is some kind of entrance? The New Jerusalem, I think in Revelation 21, where he talks about a high wall, a great wall was built with 12 gates. Mm-hmm. And even Lazarus and the rich man, he fixed a chasm in between. Isn't Jesus, and I don't want this to sound sacrilegious, but isn't Jesus or God the Father doing some extreme vetting on who he's allowing to spend eternity with him and who is not? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's actually a powerful analogy that Jeff is suggesting. I mean, you talk about the ultimate form of immigration is from earth into the kingdom in the age to come. That's the ultimate form of immigration. You migrate from here to there, and you have got to have a valid entry pass or you're not going to be let in. You can't just go in there because you want to. You've got to have a permit. You've got to be vetted, and you've got to have the right certifications to be able to go through the pearly gates. Otherwise, the gates are shut, and you are on the outside. So that's actually a powerful. So, yeah, would Jesus be in favor of restricting immigration? Absolutely.
That was awesome, watching them talk themselves into believing that Jesus would reject poor, hungry, downtrodden, oppressed refugees. That was awesome. These guys are amazing. So look, understand something. When we talk about religion in general, there are people who will cherry pick the holy books to no end. So you'll have the best people in the world of all the different faiths, and you'll have the worst people in the world of all the different faiths, and you'll have both of them swear that they have the one true version of that faith. The reality is that these holy books are massively contradictory, and therefore they're massively amorphous. So is there a bunch of shitty stuff in the Bible that you can pick, and shitty stuff in Christianity where you can say, yeah, that's what Jesus and that's what God believes, and that's what, I believe as a Christian? Sure, you could do that. But there are some issues where it's like, well, that one, he was kind of crystal clear. One of those is immigration. So I have some Bible quotes here for you, and I want to share them. So in Leviticus 19, lines 33 to 34, it says, "When a stranger sojourns with you in your land, you shall not do him wrong. You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself." That seems pretty clear. Now, sojourn, by the way, sojourner, that's kind of, that's like an immigrant or refugee, basically. Somebody who's joining you in your land. He said, treat him as your own, treat him as your own. Okay, Matthew 25:35. "For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me." Deuteronomy 27:19. "Cursed be anyone who perverts the justice due to the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow." Seems pretty clear. Hebrews 13:2. "Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware." So in other words, you don't know what those fucking people went through. You got to be hospitable. Of course, you got to be a good person. You don't know what they went through. Maybe they had the worst experience of their life. You got to look out for them. Look out for your fellow brother. Leviticus 25:35. "If your brother becomes poor and cannot maintain himself with you, you shall support him as though he were a stranger and a sojourner, and he shall live with you." So in other words, it's such a given that you're supposed to treat the stranger and the sojourner kindly that they say if your brother becomes poor and he can't afford to take care of himself anymore, you got to let your brother in and treat your brother so well that you treat him like he's a stranger or a sojourner. So it was such a given to treat immigrants, refugees, sojourners, strangers kindly that they say, well, I mean, look, your deadbeat brother, I know it's harder to treat him kindly, but you got to treat him like you treat the sojourner or the stranger. You got to treat him well. pretty clear, man. Pretty clear. This also reminds me of the question, who would Jesus deny healthcare to? Pretty sure if Jesus was around today, he would be the number one advocate for a single-payer system. But no, I'm sure that Bryan Fischer and his idiot buddy there will come up with a cute way to rationalize this and justify it and say that Jesus would love to deny spleen surgery to a child if they can't afford it.